everybody. Welcome to Honestly Bilal. I'm your host, Bilal Ahmed. I'm a fourth-year medical student at the University of Toledo. This is Honestly Bilal. For those of you who've never heard the show, I basically talk to aspiring ophthalmologists who are medical students. I talk to residents who are training in ophthalmology, and sometimes I have the privilege of talking to attendings who are practicing ophthalmologists right now. So today I'm joined by Dr. Prithvi Mruthyunjaya. He is a vitreoretinal surgeon and also an ocular oncologist at Stanford University, where he's an associate professor. He's also the director of ocular oncology and also the director of the vitreoretinal surgery fellowship program at Stanford University. He's been an accomplished author. He's published numerous publications, authored many textbook chapters. He's sat on many editorial boards, achieved the Senior Achievement Award at the American Academy of Ophthalmology, and he's won the Golden Apple Teaching Award at Stanford and Duke. So he's an extremely accomplished physician. I'm humbled to be joined by him today, so thank you.
Hey Bilal, how are you? And hi to all of your viewers. It's really an honor to be here, and you're much too generous with your introductions.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to. When I try to look you up, and I was like, "There's so much to go with here. I don't know where to start." So it's an honor.
Be careful what you find on the internet, man. It's
right, it's true.
Got to be careful.
That's absolutely right. Well, I'm
fake news. Fake news.
Yeah, well, hopefully I got the right person. I think I'm the right person. So,
I think we're good.
Yeah. So, I know that you've had quite a journey in your training and in your educational process, and you were a learner once, but now you're a teacher as well. So talk about your journey starting off in Rochester, New York, and how you ended up in Palo Alto, California now, and that whole process, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's a long story. But no, I think you're right. We are lifelong learners, and I think we're in positions that we are in now. A lot of it due to just hard work and probably a lot of kind of blind luck that just happens to fall your way. So I think there's something about each individual's journey that is special, but I think anyone can kind of take from it what they want. So I was born in India. I grew up in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York. Enjoyed the winters with like minus whatever wind chills and snow. My high school, interesting fact, my high school never skipped a day because they would always clear the roads. So we never had a snow day where I grew up, which is rather unfortunate. So I had high school in Rochester, and then I wanted to somewhat stay close to home, near family for college, and I ended up doing a 6-year program at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and Albany Medical College. I guess I probably should have looked more broad, but I kind of stayed in the Northeast and had reasons to kind of stay closer to home. But I did the 6-year route, I think, primarily because I always knew I wanted to go into medical school, and for me, it just seemed like a natural fit for who I was. And I'd done like some work in high school, and I kind of thought, I knew enough about it. So, so I did that, and we were a very primary care focused medical school. Like it was in the mid '90s, which is like forever ago. But the emphasis of the whole program was like I think more than 60% of the class went into primary care, and here I was like from the beginning wanting to do a subspecialty, and I kind of knew it was ophthalmology from the beginning. So, you kind of find your way when you kind of know what you want to do. I think some of the hardest aspects of people going into ophthalmology is that, we kind of do a very small rotation, maybe like at the end of, your 3rd year or maybe even in your 4th year, maybe not even at all. Right. And in those 2 weeks, you have to not only like it, maybe love it, like, make a relationship with, with mentors and your departments and whatnot. And then you kind of go into the whole match process. But I had really great mentors growing up in ophthalmology. I was really fortunate and blessed, I guess. My top mentor, I think, in my professional career was Dr. G.N. Rao. Dr. Rao is a cornea specialist, and he ended up leaving academia here in the U.S. and founded the L.V. Prasad Eye Institute, which is in Hyderabad, India, and it's like really now one of the top institutions in the world. It's like high-end academic. It's a model for kind of pyramid system of care delivery. So they serve a huge population in Southeast Asia, but he was kind of visionary and one of the the top public health ophthalmologists in the world. by any measure, but humble, hardworking, ethical,
Mhm.
and someone who could be very comfortable with kind of asking dumb questions as like a
Right.
high school student or a
Yeah.
college student, but really like an authority on every other level. So you knew you're standing in the presence of greatness, and that was just, it was comforting and also like inspiring, but also motivating. So you just didn't want to you kind of engage in such mentorship and that opportunity, and like you didn't want to mess it up. So
Yeah.
like, I think that was kind of my thing. Like once he was there to guide, I guess I never thought about switching routes because he had been as successful as he was and so supportive as well along the way. So I think one of the things that it kind of goes with is how you form relationships
Yeah.
at a young age, at any stage. And I had, really nice relationships with the ophthalmology department in my medical school, and still try to keep in touch when I can. So I went through the match, and I was fortunate to match at the Duke Eye Center in Durham, North Carolina. Ended up being it was like my top choice
Uh-huh.
of where to go to. But I'm fairly certain I was never their top choice. Like that's, and the reason I say that is that it's, and to your listeners too,
Mhm.
I didn't come from a like a top five medical school,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
I had opportunities that were available to me, and I think I took those as well as I could, and I tried to do as well as I could
Right.
with those. But I think there was always like a major like inadequacy like quotient, whether I was even supposed to be in the same room as the other applicants in my cohort year. So
Right. Yeah.
but you make friends along the way, and you get to see similar people amongst the circle, and chips fall as they will. And I think that everyone, you're kind of destined to probably be where you're going to be,
Yeah.
and to have that opportunity at a place where you can kind of see yourself. I think that was that was fun, and could have ended up in a bunch of places back in the old days in the 90s. Like we didn't apply to like 60, 70 programs, which I
Right.
think these days people do, and
Sure.
I understand the concerns for it. But I think like I think I interviewed at probably under 20 programs, and I ranked that many, and that kind of is what it was. So it was a great opportunity, and I'm glad I went through the process and was able to match there. But it was a great 3 years in at Duke for residency.
Mhm.
I actually came back home to Rochester, New York for my intern year, which was fun because I eventually met my future wife,
Oh.
and she's also a oncologist, and we're both in training together, and we both made it down to Duke ultimately, and that was great. So I had, again, at Duke, it was a very different environment than my medical school. Very, I mean, I'd say intense, and I say that with fondness, and I don't
Right.
mean that like in any malignant way, but it was just the way it was. Everyone worked hard and they play
Yeah.
hard as well.
Yeah.
And the South kind of has, at that time, like a very traditional system of how things were done. And I think you'd find that in a lot of the larger institutions on the East Coast, and that have storied histories. And
Right.
our department was no different. And I made great friends. I learned a lot from a lot of different departments.
Mhm.
And like like many of your listeners, I kind of loved everything in
Yeah.
ophthalmology and couldn't really pick. But we had a super strong core of retina mentors at Duke. It was the home of Robert Mockemer, who was the father of vitreoretinal surgery, and just all these giants of the field who I have such great respect for, because
Yeah.
we stand on their shoulders. And it was really a real privilege to be able to be in that retina group at that time with a lot of the innovation that was going on, and so many fellows, so many residents that were into retina and just innovating things like left, right, and center. And I
Right.
was the least innovative of them all, but probably, I think I could work as hard as anybody
Yeah.
if given the chance. So I think that was part of it. So I finished my residency, and we have at Duke a postgraduate chief year. So you're a chief resident. And the way it worked is that you're an attending at that time, and you managed all the resident lectures, and you did a lot of trauma surgery with the residents and secondary repairs and all that. So I did that for a year. And then they asked if I could do it for a second year. Which sounds really ludicrous and crazy to do that twice, but I really love teaching, and it was a great opportunity. And having a spouse who's also an aspiring academic in training as well, it allowed us to align a little bit with our timing.
Sure.
So we took it, and that was a great research year for me. I kind of was well into the groove of the teaching and got to work with two sets of resident classes through it all, and I kind of realized that teaching was an important part of what I tried to do.
Right.
So then I got to stay on at Duke Eye Center to do my vitreoretinal surgical fellowship, which was a intensive 2-year surgical training program that emphasized research and just a lot of great mentors to work with again. And I had a fantastic crew of co-fellows who, to this day, I still keep quite closely in touch with many of them, and we are colleagues and friends and collaborators, and we're really like in the trenches together. Good times, bad times, families, weddings, children, like all that through it. And I think it's band of brothers and sisters. I think that was really quite good.
Yeah.
So I finished my 2 years of fellowship and tried to make decisions kind of on the next step of where I go. And this is again where the serendipity of opportunity comes in, and where you kind of see yourself going. And I always felt like academia was where I would end up. I didn't think I'd be really very good in private practice, without having the opportunity to teach and be involved with things. And I also knew that staying, at Duke and not having anything to distinguish what I'm offering to the program may have been a little bit daunting when like the greatest mentors in the field were doing the same things that I would do as a general vitreoretinal surgeon. I mean, how could I compete? Like, what do I have to offer? So, I'd be kind of doing the same thing. So I thought of it, kind of that way, whether there are other opportunities for further training.
Yeah.
And as I tell people, there was a whole line of really smart fellows ahead of me that were offered opportunities to bring ocular oncology and reestablish that at Duke. And they, for great opportunities of their own, they didn't. So I tell everyone I got the hand-me-down job, like from about 2 or 3 of my fellows ahead of time for that opportunity. And but it's been great. My wife's an oncologist, and I think I've always been interested in something more about the holistic aspect of medicine. And I think a lot of us think about internal medicine or other things as fields because we appreciate like the whole body and as it connects to the eye. And I thought this was as unique an opportunity as it could be. So Duke actually sponsored me to go to England, where I went to the Moorfields Eye Hospital, and there I trained with one of the giants of the field, Mr. John Hungerford. So I got to become licensed as a foreign medical graduate in another country, which was a humbling experience. As people really struggle coming to the U.S. I had to take an English test. I had to fill out all my papers and such. But I was able to then be credentialed as a fellow who could operate in the UK. And it was great. So I got to like delve right into the national health system. And it was there, like, there's just a whole bunch of patients to be seen, and you just kind of dive right in. So that was really very interesting. And in a short period of time, I got to do a lot clinically and see a lot of patients and surgical. And it was an old school fellowship where it was just me and my mentor, and we would take long tube rides, from one hospital to the other. And I would just be, I wasn't with my wife or my child. They were back here in the States, and I was just, reading everything that I could and just like asking questions all day. And I think it was really an important way for me to learn as much as I could about ocular oncology. And it was a great year. And I made it back to Durham, North Carolina, and started my practice. And really was such an important, formative, little over a decade on faculty at Duke, and a total of about 17 years in Durham for my wife and I, before we made the move now exactly 4 years ago here to Palo Alto. So I joined the faculty here at Stanford. We here didn't really have a ocular oncology service, and it was really an opportunity to kind of be in a different part of the country at another great university with colleagues who are friends,
Hmm.
and to maybe bring a different style of teaching and learning and patient care to the West Coast, and really meld in with a great group. So that was not a short answer to a short question, but
No, but it's the story, and that's the thing. I think that the story is what tells a lot about the person, and it seems like
no.
you didn't really plan a lot of it, but it just kind of happened, and it seems like you took an opportunity, led to another opportunity, and you just kind of knew that you're deep down you knew what you wanted to become, but you kind of had to go with whatever was presented in front of you.
Yeah, and I can't say that like I knew this is what I want to do. I have some friends and colleagues who have always known that exactly this is it. I guess I always wanted to be an ophthalmologist, and early on I guess I always wanted to go into retina, but I
Yeah,
can't tell you that I knew ocular oncology was like something that I'd end up
yeah,
doing. But I think now it is something that that defines me, and makes me think about what to do better next
yeah,
on a daily basis, and it offers an opportunity for me to give something maybe a little bit unique to
exactly.
the training experience.
Sure.
So yeah, that's that's how it happens.
That's crazy. I mean, that's just one of those things where it was almost, you start off, you have this conception of what you want to become, but then, like you said, that there's always a niche for somebody to become more than what they ever thought they could be, and it's like, I mean, it's one thing to even be an ophthalmologist, but then to be a vitreoretinal surgeon, and then to be an ocular oncologist on top of that, it's you really become so. I feel like you're not just specialized. You become more than just specialized. You try to find
Yeah.
ways to make yourself expand and learn more. So
I always feel like you don't know what you don't know, and I think
right,
sometimes you might have a semblance of like this is exactly what I want to do or how I want to do it, but the truth is opportunities are always there, and I think the hard part is being able to see yourself in the future with a path that you may want to take, and then to see like the pros and cons of it.
yeah.
And I think one of the hard things is to realize that it may not work,
Mhm.
and maybe like you've made a mistake, like maybe this isn't the best
Yeah,
place um, to venture into, but it happens, and I think we're all smart enough with all of our journeys to then have to be resourceful and to do
yeah,
something different, but that's okay. I mean, it's all
yeah.
part of it, and every experience builds, right? Like you can't say like any one of those steps that I may have taken or you will take
Mhm.
that didn't just work out just right. I mean, I don't think it's wasted effort in any way in medicine. I mean, it's
Yeah,
we spend enough time, heaven's sake, like in training. Like sometimes a year seems like forever, but maybe it's not in the grand scheme of things. Who knows?
yeah. I mean, we try to plan, and then sometimes it's funny how the plans just never work out, but they become something
Don't
else
always work out.
even better. Something, wow, I planned for this to happen, but I didn't realize it would become something much better down the road. So,
Right.
it's
And
one
you
of those.
can't always see that, and that's where I think mentors kind of help.
Yeah,
Sometimes they can, they may have a few gray hairs, or maybe they have their own experiences that this might be good, but just hang in there. And I think hanging in there is like a really uneasy step, right? To
yeah,
say, well, maybe it'll work out, and but I don't want to take the chance. And sometimes having something in hand versus something bigger that could be there if it blossoms, right? That's a risk, and I think that risk tolerance and risk reward is something not always easily quantifiable, and you want it all up front. So
yeah,
that's not easy.
yeah. Absolutely. And I guess that's one thing I was going to ask you is like, you're just going off of that, what you said there. Do you feel like you took risks that were sometimes questionable to yourself that you're like, oh my goodness, am I doing the right thing? Or did you feel like you took a healthy amount of risk that was really calculated? Or did you just kind of go with whatever felt right in the moment about your career?
Yeah, I hate to say, I'm not that adventurous, I guess. So I think that it's, you always try to plan things out. And in our case, there was two physician careers that were always in balance, myself and my wife, and we're both like very passionate about what we do, and such. So there's always like this respect for each other's you know, kind of goals as we wanted to be. And so how could we try to optimize and maximize? But I think the biggest risk was, you know, going abroad to do another fellowship, when I could have either, you know, gotten a job at that point, you know, making that alteration. Who knew what that would look like when I came back, and, you know, whether it would be even successful. So I think that was a risk. And I think, you know, leaving a place like Duke where I was very comfortable, and, you know, I thought they would bury me next to my slit lamp. Like I would just, you know, end out my career there, which would have been just fine. And then, you know, at that point where I had such great friends and such great relationships, that, you know, to leave there at that time, I think that felt risky to me. But again, you know, in retrospect, it's not, you know, I wasn't that, you know, out there or audacious. I think a lot of folks, when they start their first job, the average time in a ophthalmology practice and your first job is 2 years. So, you know, most people will make those changes and jumps, and in that way, maybe, you know, I'm not that, you know, that, you know, kind of limber and plastic to be able to move around. I kind of like things, but I think I also would probably give something like as much a chance as I could for as long as I could, to try to make it work. You know, I don't know if I'm like a, you know, bail at the first sight of trouble kind of guy, but maybe that's also, you know, that could be a fault too. I don't know.
Oh no, it looks like you definitely made it work, and it looks like you're happy where you're at in your career now, and that's the main thing. So, you know, a lot of my audience is mostly meant, this show is meant for medical students, and I don't think a lot of medical students get exposed to ocular oncology. I know I have never been exposed to it in medical school and known much about it. Besides being a vitreoretinal surgeon, that's a big part of your career is ocular oncology, like you touched on. So kind of explain to the audience, you know, what is the responsibility of an ocular oncologist, and what does that entail?
Yeah, good question. So ocular oncology is the study of eye cancers, so broadly. So we look at both from the pediatric newborns to, you know, older individuals, so across the spectrum. So it's the management of eye cancers, it's the diagnosis of suspicious lesions that could be cancer, and to try to prove whether it is or isn't. Finally, it's the incorporation of systemic cancers and how they impact the eye, whether as metastatic tumors from another part of the body to the eye, or also the side effect of treatments. And as now there are so many new targeted therapies that are extending life and making such a difference, we're understanding that there are more complications that can impact vision. And I think that's part of the job as well. I take care of babies with retinoblastoma. I take care of teenagers with, you know, leukemias, and then older individuals primarily with ocular melanomas and metastatic lesions to the eye. We use, as a vitreoretinal surgeon, my angle towards it kind of ties in with my, you know, with my first love and first training, which is retina. So my focus of my practice is predominantly on intraocular tumors. We take a very vitreoretinal surgical approach to it. So a lot of using small instruments, small gauge vitrectomy to take, you know, tumor biopsies and cut things out that don't, you know, you shouldn't be cutting out of the eye, and to try to make diagnoses. So that's an aspect of it. What's a little different about what I do, and this goes to my training, is that I also manage ocular surface tumors. So a lot of conjunctival tumors, some orbital biopsies and such. So I think that's one of the, that's something a little different that our fellows see as retina fellows, because they spend time on my rotation. So, you know, a lot of surface tumors, conjunctival, and mainly intraocular tumors. So it's a burgeoning field. I think there's more and more of us that are practicing in ocular oncology through the years as more people are training, and the needs become so that universities need to have these specialists in their midst. There are some great private practices also that manage large parts of the country for needs, but there's not many of us in the U.S. So probably university-based, probably about 24 or so universities have programs, and maybe others in other universities that manage those conditions. So again, say 40 to 50 of us in the country that kind of put this on their bill of business going forward. So. And it's a small group of folks, and we all kind of know each other, and we keep on top of each other's research and work. So and there's a lot that we've been doing in a collaborative sense. So there's been this kind of push towards folks working together, kind of a younger generation. Maybe I'm like too old to call myself in the young generation
Oh,
anymore, but it's like it's but I think that there's a push for collaborative studies so that
yeah,
we can come up with better answers together, and I think that's actually motivating as well, to know that there's strength in numbers and people might be able to work together to make a difference. So and it's not something that I think a lot of people think about doing unless they've been exposed to it. But why I really love it is that it really incorporates really all aspects of ophthalmology. So there are days where I'm looking after neuro-ophthalmologic issues that deal with cancer, secondary angle closure glaucoma due to a tumor, conjunctival issues, intraocular issues. We're really just like ophthalmology kind of incorporates the rest of the body. Ocular oncology, to me, really incorporates all of the eye.
I see.
So it really kind of forces me to try to be on top of newer treatments and why are we doing this and complications of such. So I can't allow myself to be like in a little bubble for too
Yeah,
long, because then I won't know like what is this new stent they're putting in
right,
for glaucoma. Could it impact my patient with a
right.
melanoma in their eye? So so it's good, and it kind of forces me to stay a little bit current, and definitely challenges my trainees too, as I pull out obscure facts from the air that I
Right.
just kind of looked up. So it's
So it's almost like even though it's a very, even though ocular oncology is a very specialized field, and as well as vitreoretinal surgery, it almost seems like even though they are, specialized, you also have to have a very good comprehensive ophthalmology knowledge base to really have an idea of how things can manifest. It seems like from what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I've realized. And I go back to a lot of my old training, and again, a lot of the mentors that I had in residency. So again, you don't know what you are going to have to use from your training. So, whether it's pediatric ophthalmology, which was, particularly hard for me as a resident,
Yeah.
kind of managing children, but now I take care of a lot of kids, and, all those little tricks and tools that I learned in surgery with my attendings there, still come back to, help me. And I hear their voices like in my head, as I'm doing something, and try not to do it wrong. Cause like, that's what I do. That's why I hear their voices. So I think that just like anything, you don't know what you're going to actually need. So just cause like, I really want to be a corneal surgeon and I love refractive surgery.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that, learning how to do a good retina exam or paying attention to those neuro-ophthalmology lectures won't come in handy. And I definitely do not have photographic recall and remember all this stuff, but I kind of know like where I heard something and I can go find it. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Knowing your limitations are really important.
Absolutely, and that's something I was going to ask you. I'm sure at some point, you're very humble, and I think you downgrade your abilities more than you should. But I think it's fair to, I think every person is a student, and we've talked about this before we got on here. Is that we talked about lifelong learning a little bit, and you've had numerous years of training, more than most people in ophthalmology. So, and at these big name institutions or these fields that are sort of new territory, were you ever in a place where you doubted yourself, or did you feel like maybe this was a place where you just felt like you didn't belong? Or you feel like, I'm the underdog here, or maybe I need to prove myself, right? What do I need to do to dig deep in this situation? Did you ever find yourself in a place like that, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I think all the time. So I think I think I kind of doubt myself along the way all the time, and I don't mean that in like in any like self deprecating kind of way, but I think there's always a humility of knowing that there's so much more out there, so much bigger than you. My wife and I always talk about how when you have the opportunity to speak at a large national meeting in ophthalmology or in retina, and there's like 3,000 people in the audience, right?
Yeah.
Like on that same day in another part of the world, there's some expert, some, you know, man or woman who is like the, you know, the tree bark expert of the world, who's giving a talk in front of 10,000 tree
Yeah.
experts. And like everyone's going, whoa, like this guy knows everything. He is the man or she is the
That's fair.
woman. And so like, again, so like our perspective is so like, we're so small in like
That's
what we do
true. Yeah.
in the world, right? And, you know, and yes, you know, I may have an opportunity to help an eye and whatnot, but, you know, I'm definitely not going to be in the running for Nobel Prize or, you know, or whatnot in the future. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that there isn't an importance of what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that that for me, there's that constant self-doubting that do I know enough, or have I learned enough, or have I asked the right questions? I kind of look at like every case you walk into or every surgery as a little bit of like healthy self-doubt. Like I
Sure.
just, you know, I kind of run every case in my head, and the analogy that I use is, you know, Michael Jordan doesn't walk out onto a court and, you know, just starts shooting. Like, you know,
Yeah.
he's kind of visualized the shot as it
Yeah.
goes into the basket from every angle all the time. And
Absolutely.
that's as much as you can do when you prepare as a surgeon. And whether it's a straightforward routine cataract or a complicated endoresection of a tumor in the eye, you know, whatever you think that's important, you kind of run through everything. So I think every day there's a bit of little bit of self-doubt and a lot of humility as to how you take things. And I think I'm first, it's like I don't know everything, and
Yeah.
I don't claim to, but you know, I think you still want to do what's right for the patient. And if you ever get that comfortable, like I know everything, then you're going to miss something. So
Right.
so I think, yeah, there's always like a healthy bit of self-doubt on a daily basis.
Mhm.
In my career, I'd say, like when you're just starting in a very niched field and you know, you work among giants
Yeah.
who have been doing this a couple decades more than you have, and you know that, you know, have accomplished a lot more and are more intelligent, and more experienced and wise. I think there's always that doubt, you know, whether you can hold up to them and are you doing the right thing. And
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, I think if you take it as like a, you know, I want to be better than someone else or better than them. And then I think you have to ask yourself, really, for what? Like, you know, why are you trying to do that? Like, is it for yourself?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be good to take care of your patients the
Right.
best way, or move your research forward, or move the field forward? And I think
Yeah.
that's what has helped me, like, to be able to work in
Mhm.
the sphere that I can control, which is amongst my colleagues and my friends and people that think, you know, likewise. And I think in time it's allowed me to gain, you know, great new relationships with some of these very senior people and
Yeah.
older people
Yeah.
that you're like, okay, that works out. And you know, they might still think that, you know, I'm an idiot, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
that's okay. But
Yeah.
it's good, because I think at the end of the day, you know, as long as you know, patients are looked after, and you know, we can move the field forward in little ways, that's
Yeah.
fine. But just remember, the woman who's giving the lecture about tree bark is
Park. Yeah.
probably more important than any of us will ever be one day. So
That's awesome. No.
as long as that comes into play, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's a good analogy because I think in the end of the day, at least the process, like I feel like I'm going through right now, or maybe other medical students were like, oh my gosh, what if my application's not good enough, or what if I'm just like not as published as people are, or what if I don't have the best scores or grades or anything, like, you know, like you're saying, there's people out there who, yeah, are super accomplished and they're going to be better than you, and there's going to be people who are just studying some other field like astrophysics or something else that's, you know, totally different, but it's important, and you find your place in that. And you know, I think that perspective is awesome. I actually really like
So
that.
what no one can take away from any of us, you know, forget the scores. You know, mine weren't, you know, super awesome grades. They were okay. They weren't like, there were probably people that were better. And publication wise, I didn't come from a PhD background, and I didn't have, you know, a faculty in my medical school where, you know, everyone was doing like
Yeah.
tons of stuff. And so
Yeah.
there, you know, and I read applications like a lot this time of year for
Right.
residency and fellowship. And, you know, you're just seeing like people come from all different things. I'll say this: no one can limit how hard you can work yourself. Like,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's a hustle. And I will take someone who has hustled
Yep.
to get to be in the conversation, like hands down over someone where everything was like handed to you. And no offense to my like, really smart friends that have, you know, gone to like really great universities and whatnot, but I kind of hold the bar a little bit higher. Like, you know,
Yeah.
if things are that much easier, then yes, like, you know, the accomplishment and the expectation may be just a little bit higher as well. So I'll take hard work any day, because if, you know, everyone's smart, like when they get to this point and they've obviously done things right to get to where they are. But hard work and, you know, earnestness and not being entitled to, you know, what's ahead of you,
Yeah.
take it anytime, 100%. So that's what you can control. It's like how
Yeah.
hard, you know, you're willing to work,
Absolutely.
and how earnest you can be. Everything else, you know, these are numbers and scores and whatnot. You'll be fine. Just work hard.
I think that's really, really what resonates with people who are listening to this, because a lot of us, myself included, we don't have home programs, or at least I don't. I know I've talked to friends who are planning this year who come from schools without home programs, or some who do. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to find. I feel like it's everybody has their own skill set or own talent or own something to bring to the table, that if they, like you said, work hard, bring that, be honest about it, and just show up. Half the battle is showing up. So I feel like, that's the rest is like the work ethic you said, and I think that's so many people who will be listening to this will really take away
Yeah.
that.
Just remember this, like, you know, you can outwork anybody if you really want to. I mean,
Yeah.
if you take that time in your residency as a medical student, but in your residency, and you're going to say there's no one that's going to spend more time, you know, reading as I am, or, you know, like being on the spot as I am, or whatnot. You know, it doesn't mean that where you end up in medical school defines where you go to residency, or where you
Mhm.
are as a person who practices to take care of patients, or research, or academics. I mean, all different roads, and it's not all, you know, like there's not just like two universities that produce all the people in the world that are good, right? Like all of us are, you know, offer different things.
For sure.
It's just it is how you kind of put that together,
Mhm.
and maybe it's okay to have a chip on your shoulder, right? Like saying like maybe I'm not as good as someone else thinks, you know, I am, or maybe I got in because I'm lucky, not because
Yeah,
I'm good,
yeah, for
you know.
sure.
But okay, fine, once you're in, welcome to the game. Like at this
Yeah.
point, like you got to play, and
Uh-huh.
you can't be like, oh, it's not, you know, I'm never going to be there.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. So you just don't let anyone outwork you,
Yeah.
and don't lose that enthusiasm of what, you know, took you through this entire crazy process in the first place. Like you're applying to ophthalmology because like you kind of want to be an ophthalmologist, and, you know, as the end point. So then go for it. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing that should stop you.
That's awesome. No, I think that's like that. It's something to hear from somebody who's made it, as far as you say, and I know you don't think you have, but to us,
Yeah,
it's like it's like looking at people who have contributed something is more important than people
yeah.
who just taken it and kind of kept it to themselves. So
I get that. And, you know, I think that, you know, this year is a little crazy, right? Like with the COVID stuff,
yeah,
and, you know, everyone's like the uncertainty. And as you pointed out, you know, you're gonna not have that opportunity to meet people on the interview trail, maybe as much as you would have in other years and all that. But, you know, this will be a time that defines, you know, a generation of learners.
absolutely.
And, you know, how do you take that opportunity and say that, you know, I'm gonna do like what, you know, Bilal has done, which is, you know, find forums for people to still interact, because that interaction is still important.
Yeah,
But how do you do it, and how do you still get to, you know, work with others and share ideas, and maybe you guys will find even better ways to do it than what was done before. You know, maybe standing in a room with, you know 200 people and hearing a lecture,
yeah,
it will be very different than being on a Zoom with 1,000 people and
yeah.
getting ideas. So who knows? Like, you know,
No,
there's got to be something good that comes out of all this,
yeah,
when people are motivated.
absolutely. I think there's silver linings down the road that we're not seeing yet, but maybe they're forming. Like you.
Doesn't always show itself, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. Like you've shown it yourself. That you never know when the silver lining's there, but when it's there, you
yeah,
may not appreciate it till later. Well,
totally true.
Dr. Mruthyunjaya, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an honor. I mean, you're so. One thing about you, I've just been interacting with you, is how humble you are, and I think that's something to take away from all of this. And you mentioned
You're
hard work,
very kind.
and I think we're going to take away that hard work, and the humility is going to win the day at the end, no matter what
Yeah.
happens. If you have
So
those
I
things.
hope I get to meet all of your viewers at some time or another, whether it's in Palo Alto or at a meeting when we ultimately have them. And I think what's cool is that there's a lot of, for your listeners,
Mhm.
there are a lot of ophthalmology based um, courses and webinars
Yep.
and things that are just out there and they're free.
Right.
No one's figured out how to charge for them yet. Like we have a Stanford Retinal Innovations Summit that we have moved online that'll be starting in August.
Okay.
Like I would just find all these, and
Yeah.
even if it's like way over your head, I mean, you get to hear things and really delve into see what an amazing field ophthalmology is,
Yeah.
and whether it's in dry eye or glaucoma or retina. Retina is the best, of course, but like
Okay.
any of those others are okay
Bias
too.
here.
You can spend some time, but it's great opportunities for your learners to like really get a sense, and you'll probably learn a lot about different faculty members from different parts of the country just by hearing them, more than maybe a 10-minute interview would have gotten you. So who knows? Who knows? But anyone that I bump into, if you're a friend of Bilal's, just say hi, and
Absolutely.
we'll get to chat.
Well, a lot of my viewers are on Twitter. A lot of us have been using Twitter this season to kind of meet attendings and faculty members. So, do you have a Twitter account people can follow you on?
Yeah, so it's I EYEM Prithvi, my first name, Prithvi. So I am Prithvi which is my Twitter handle.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll hopefully get more followers who are students to kind of follow your wisdom and maybe you can share some more with us.
Right now, it's my wife and my two daughters who are following me. So maybe that's it's a way to build up my following.
There you go. It's all there. There it is. That's a loyal following you'll have. So stick with that too.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Well, it was
All right.
absolutely fun. Thanks for joining me.
Be well.
All right.
Take
Take care.
care. Thank you. Bye.